family which you would call disadvantaged in material terms. I was fortunate and blessed to have a mother and an elder sister who really took me and they nurtured me in terms of values, in terms of how you assert yourself as a human being. And one thing which came clear from my mother is, it is not the circumstances under which you were born which will determine and define who you are. And she wanted with this to make me confident and secure that the fact that I had no father and I was being brought up by a woman alone with 6 children, and the fact that we were living in a disadvantaged area of Mozambique, that should not limit what I can be or I can choose to be. So that's one. The second thing is that I have been given extraordinary opportunities in life. The first one, it's education. I was given an opportunity to start my education at the age of 6, which was not normal for many kids of my origin. So education has given me the self-confidence of saying, I can make choices in life.
When you were with Frelimo, you didn't really hold a gun, but you were busy involved in education.
You know, the liberation struggle was mostly a cultural process. It was changing the perspectives of who you are and what you can be in your society. Just the fact that we had to be trained and use a gun, that alone you say, it means I have to be a different person. It's not for your own protection, it's precisely to protect the people around.
So but can you still fire a machine gun?
No, not now. Oh, that has been a long time ago. No more. I think what made the success of education in the first years of independence in Mozambique, we were a strong team. And from that team, we built on strengths and knowledge and experience and expertise of a diversity of people. I was very young. I was only 29 when I turned minister. I didn't know anything except that I had been trained to be a teacher. How do we structure from scratch a system of education which is based on a Mozambican context and it responds to Mozambican needs and aspirations? I learned this from the team I had to work with.
You're part of a generation of people who are involved in liberation in their countries. And here at a summit about leadership, what are your reflections of leadership on the continent post-liberation? Has the Liberation Project worked?
Let me first give credit to our forefathers, those who told us that Africa could be free. You know, in 56 or 57, when Ghana became independent, it was a dream to say that this continent could be completely free and decolonized. But they had a vision. People like Nkrumah and the Dingereres of the day, they had a vision to say, it is possible. Against all odds, they had a vision and they're very determined and to mobilize every single country and nation and people on the continent. And that's what made that against 500 years of colonization, in about 50 years, the continent was free. So 50 years for a continent, it's a short period of time, if you can say. And it was possible. Now we are free. I think our major problem today is that we haven't managed 2 things which are very important for me. Is we were told, you know, that we are Portuguese-speaking countries, we are English-speaking countries, we are French-speaking countries. We haven't shared against that thing to recapture, reclaim our own identity. I'm not a Portuguese-speaking person. I'm a Mozambican who speaks language. I have a culture. We are not Yorubas, we are not Shonas, we are not Zulus. No, we are English-speaking, and we have to share that. I'm saying culturally, it's very important. You have to regain your own identity. And there are values which belong to us, they are part of us, which have to instill in anything we do, whether you are in politics, whether you are in business. I'm talking to business people here. I would ask you, what are the African values which build Africanness, which make us distinct from the Chinese, from the German, because we are distinct. What are they? And we have to regain that. Let me give an example. When the Japanese were struck by this recent tsunami, etc., did you see how they behaved? With such dignity in the midst of a huge adversity. But they have a Japanese way of responding even to tragedies of that magnitude. What I'm trying to say is that Africans are very busy and they are very quick to adapt to other identities and not to reclaim and build up in their own identity, in their own heritage, in their own way of being and doing things, which will give us the self-esteem, the self-confidence, and the ability then to relate to others shoulder to shoulder.
How do we do that in a world in which we're constantly being told we need to catch up? Here is best practice that has been established elsewhere. And so in trying to catch up with the rest of the world,
I know it is a challenge because the world is changing very rapidly. But we need to do this. My indication is that, you know, you have research institutions, you have other institutions which have to help us to do this. Bongani, I do not know whether your child, even yourself in your generation, how much do you know of your own history? If you don't, who are you? And it's important to catch up with the rest of the world, but defining yourself and standing on your own feet, having your spine erect and secure. Let me give you another example. 30 years back, the Chinese, people would laugh at them, you know, because they were these eyes like this, etc., etc. Today, because they knew where they were going and how they wanted to be there, no one today can make decisions without taking account China. I'm saying to Africans, in 30 years' time, 35, 45, I want Africans to be in a situation where no one will make decisions in the world without taking into account our own perspective. And we have to fight for this. It's not going to happen on its own. And at that space of defining who we are and where we want to go and how we want to go, I would challenge business. You know, our business people, they are, here we'll have mostly South African business people. But how much do they interact among Africans to have the African perspective of doing business? Very easily to be linked with American, very easy to link with the British, very easy to link now with China or with India. But among Africans, we have to also to shade away, you know, what I would call the Berlin, it's not my word, the Berlin curse. We are so partnerish in small things. All these countries, nations are not viable on their own. We will be viable as a continent if we unite. But unite on the basis of principles, on the basis of values which characterize us as Africans. And when we stand in any platform and they feel this is an African speaking, and I don't think at this point in time we do have that. You will see scattered people, fragmented people talking on behalf of Africa. But that common vision, that common understanding of who we are, it has to be built. Otherwise, we'll not succeed. This thing of integration, of regional integration, business have to take it seriously. It's not a political issue alone. Integration, it means economic infrastructure and all this. But it has to be seen as people again. It's not abstract, it's just roads and railways and telecommunication. It's people. And business, South African business have to take the time to learn and to understand people in our continent.